Welcome to The Favorites, the podcast, part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman of the Action Network. This week, my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF professional bettor, Simon Hunter, is still on vacation, yucking it up with his relatives in Northern England, getting his accent permanently on. But an NBA season just wrapped up. And it was thrilling and it was exciting and it was awesome and it was heartbreaking. And we're wondering if we've crowned a dynasty. We're wondering how long before Tyrese Halliburton comes back. But because the NBA season has mastered the month of June and into July, we got so much good NBA stuff to talk about, including NBA draft. Wednesday night, I'm joined by two of Action Network's finest to discuss the NBA draft. The event serves as the official kickoff of the NBA offseason, the prelude to the NBA free agency madness to come. From Action Network's NBA betting podcast buckets, welcome to the show, Brandon Anderson and Bryan Fonseca. Bryan, I feel like you're making your maiden voyage on the favorites.
I definitely am. This is the first time that I'm here. Happy to be here, obviously. Just wish it was after a better game seven. But
I mean, it was a bummer. The Pacers made it as much of a game as they could. That everything about that Tyrese Halliburton image is heartbreaking, and I think it's going to stick with everybody in
yeah.
the finals. Brandon, like watching that game, I mean, we should do a quick 2 minute recap just because it was. I, I never thought the Pacers had a chance, but they've been so dynamic and so such fighters all off season. Right up until they were blown out, I thought they had a chance, and I thought Oklahoma City was starting to sort of spit the bit a little bit.
It felt like we were literally like 2, 3 minutes away from like, it's the middle of the third quarter and the Pacers are still right in this thing. And like right about as we were gonna get like it was gonna flip totally to like you cannot blow this Oklahoma City. You're the favorite. You're at home in game seven. Halliburton's out. You can't blow this. And then they didn't blow it. But we were like 3 minutes away, it felt like, from I think Oklahoma City had like a 9-0 run and kind of ripped it open. If that run goes the other way, if the Pacers just hit a couple of threes and get a stop or two, I don't know. We'll never know what would have happened. It sucks that Tyrese Halliburton, the lasting image we'll have is of him on the floor in that way. There's so many images of Halliburton in these playoffs. We got the choke image, we got the game winner in game one image, so many awesome moments. And it's a terrible outcome both ways because we don't get to see the payoff for the Cinderella Pacers thing, and it kind of takes away from what it feels like the Thunder accomplished as like just an obvious, not for me, but an obvious asterisk-y sort of situation. Like, oh well, the star got hurt, so you can just smell the storyline coming where we kind of have to talk down both sides of the equation now, and it's kind of a
Disagree.
bummer to finish.
Disagree. Bryan,
Okay.
I completely disagree with just the latter part of what Brandon said. I don't take anything away from the Thunder. The Thunder very well might have won that game. They were in that game. Tyrese Halliburton had not been that effective in the game when he came back from the right calf strain. He was starting to play well, but I don't believe that there is any asterisk on this team at all. I thought, and I want your take on that, but I actually thought Brandon was going to say, now in an East that to me was entirely up for grabs going into next year, and the Pacers looking like they could be really confident Eastern Conference defending champions and possibly the favorites to win that conference. Now that's up in the air. We don't get to see the follow up of this team that grew and figured out who they were and came together and was so competitive and started to develop like a real reputation and a fan base. That's what I'm bummed I don't get to see the next year. But Bryan, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I don't think this
Brandon Anderson is wrong and Chad Millman is right.
I don't think this is an asterisk. No. Look, it's a bummer, right? Because for me, it's like Oklahoma City was the best team from start to finish. So them winning the title, it's something that everyone should be okay with. Like they were the best team. But we were still robbed of what looked like it was going to be a fantastic game 7. I don't know if Indiana would have won, but like I entertained the possibility when I saw Tyrese Halliburton make two threes from like 30 plus feet out and score 9 points within 7 minutes and have the Pacers go on an early run. And it was like, oh, we had been saying on buckets leading up to this, like this is the one team on the road in a game 7 where they're the most defiant team in the NBA. And you have to look at them and be like, yeah, they have a real shot here because they just don't care about how they're perceived or they're underdogs or they shouldn't be here and all these different things. Like that's how they got here to begin with. So to see it end like that was just disheartening. I just wish it ended differently because I think, for the sake of like just basketball in the NBA finals, like we were about to see something special, like a special finish. Oklahoma City still might have won. That could have been the case, but Tyrese Halliburton was like on a tear early on, and then he got hurt like just on that play. Three ruptured Achilles in the playoffs too to star players, which is another thing that we can potentially get to because I have some thoughts, probably not a little bit of them, on whether or not this should affect how we look at NBA seasons and whether or not they should be shortened. But ultimately, like I thought we were robbed of what would have been a great finish. And Indiana, to Brandon's point, did have like there was a window there in the third quarter, but they just didn't have enough. Ultimately, TJ McConnell could only take you but so far.
Meanwhile, within the span of 12 hours, we all of a sudden have so much to talk about regarding any early leans for potential title matchups, potential Western Conference finals, or Western Conference champions, Eastern Conference champions. Let's talk about the East for a minute. Halliburton, probably not going to play next year. Dame, probably not going to play next year. Giannis, who knows where he's going to be, but the Bucks are clearly diminished. Tatum, probably not going to play next year. The Celtics, they were already going to change their roster. Last week, the Magic make the trade with the Memphis Grizzlies for Bane, and now all of a sudden people are legitimately talking about the Magic as being one of those teams that could be the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Darius Garland coming back from his toe surgery will be better, and that team was diminished in the playoffs. What do we do here? How do we handicap the Eastern Conference right now when the teams that could have had the best chance to win are now playing without their best players?
Yeah, the favorites going into yesterday, we had basically co-favorites, three co-favorites. I've never quite seen that in the NBA. That's not how the NBA rolls with three co-favorites. It was Cavs, it was Pacers, it was Knicks. And Jim Turvey and I on Buckets did a podcast on already kind of a look ahead to next year's conference finals. We disagreed that the Knicks were in the triumvirate of favorites. We feel like the Knicks, they don't have a coach right now. Like, let's see what the Knicks put together first if we put them in the mix. I do think the Cavs are the correct favorites. I know that they came up short this year. I know that they fell, but shouldn't we think about them losing the Pacers a little differently now, a month later, after how good the Pacers have been? Maybe not so embarrassing for a one seed Cavs to lose to that Pacers team. To me, we're going to naturally look down the list and say, okay, well, the Magic, they got their new star, they had their trade, they're the next young team to make the leap. How about the Pistons? They were right there with the Knicks in the first round. Maybe they're the team to make the leap. For me, I don't necessarily want an incremental growth from one of the young teams. Maybe it will just be that. I'd almost rather take a shot if I'm going to, play a future this far out. I'd rather take a shot at a Raptors or a blank canvas Nets roster of just like somebody that's like, hey, you know what? Those guys are the favorites talked about the blank canvas in the East. We see that too. How about we just go make a big move? Let's make a splash. We weren't really trying to win right now, but this conference is eminently winnable. Let's put our chips in and go make a move. And maybe that's Devin Booker now that the Suns are in a rebuilding mode. Maybe it is Giannis on a new team. Maybe he stays in the East. Giannis on whatever team in the East with not Dame Lillard's Achilles. I'm interested. Like, give me anybody, literally any teammate to Giannis. Then that's not Kyle Kuzma, to be clear. A real teammate to Giannis. I'm interested. Like, I am less interested in those middle tier teams kind of edging up into the gap. I'm more interested in a longer shot team that just like finds the star, makes the big move, smells the blood in the water we're seeing, and is like, let's take a shot here.
I love that idea. Who do you think then is like you just named Raptors, Nets, who of the, you know, middle the teams
Yeah.
that could take the big leap is going to put themselves in the best position?
So I was intrigued by the Nets. We talked about this briefly after the game last night. Matt Moore at Buckets thinks it's not the Nets. You think the Nets are a year away? They're saving up for a year from now free agency. That can change. Maybe you kind of just shift your odds when there's this big gap year. I'm going to give him credit on that. So I'm going to go with the Raptors as a team that quietly, from like February forward, was like a top 3 to 5 defense in the NBA, even though they were just kind of off the radar totally. They have this weird mix of players that don't make a lot of sense. I don't really feel like we know what Masai Ujiri is doing building the team, but the weird mix of players make for interesting trade targets. Is it Brandon Ingram? Is it Emmanuel Quickly? Is it RJ Barrett? Teams like these dudes. I don't really love these dudes, but teams do, and that means okay, maybe that was the Kevin Durant package. It wasn't. Maybe that's the Giannis package. Giannis in Toronto, international player. I'm intrigued. I think that's a real possibility there. A jury's pulled off big moves before. We saw the Kawhi trade, and then boom, they win a championship right after that. So I do think there's some intrigue, some roster intrigue of okay, subtract 2 or 3 of the guys for a star. There's still a few other guys on the roster there, and I don't really know what becomes of the team, but I can imagine a bigger leap rather than an incremental one. So I'll say Raptors as just like a shot in the dark team right now.
All right, Brian. Yesterday, Kevin Durant traded to the Rockets, and finding out while being interviewed on stage at Fanatics Fest, which to me was just choice content you never get. You just never get. This is the day and age we're in, though. Everything is filmed, everything in his event. You got Kevin Durant on stage, and in the middle of a question, the interviewer is starting to hear fans yell, Durant was just traded to the Rockets. And that's how the news is being broken. That's the world we're living in right now. Uh, that catapults the Rockets up the Western Conference, behind the Thunder now in shortest odds. Overreaction?
I mean, the Rockets already had an elite defense, and now they're getting the one thing that they really needed was a shot creator. I have my concerns. I have my concerns about Kevin Durant turning 37 in September and potentially leading this team to the Western Conference championship against what we just saw in Oklahoma City. But it's very hard to repeat, especially now, because the long, grueling seasons are even longer and more grueling because the game is just faster. And Oklahoma City is very young, but you're one injury away from things just changing like that, as we've seen from other teams. I don't think it's an overreaction to have Houston second. They were the second seed, although many of us didn't believe they would win in the first round because Golden State on the other side had Steph Curry, added Jimmy Butler, still have Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, who's been an institution there for many years. But now with Houston, it's like, okay, you're getting Kevin Durant to take on the Jalen Green role. I think that Brandon's going to be with me on this. I think that's a huge upgrade. The concern, I think, is though health. Is Kevin Durant going to play 62 games, 70 games, 48 games? And can they get by in the regular season if he's limited? That leads us to Amen Thompson, who some of us believe is a potential star, a potential all-star, and somebody who's going to get a lot of buzz for different types of awards and honors moving forward. Is this an opportunity for him to assume that role in the event that Kevin Durant can't for 82 games, which he probably won't be able to? That's an unrealistic request. And also for Amen Thompson, can he just develop more? Because he's only still in his early to mid 20s. He's only a few years in the league. He's had some injury stuff that he's had to overcome. So the progress hasn't always been linear. But he's somebody to look to. And then this is the thing that I like about Houston and with some of the Eastern Conference teams that Brandon was talking about. You have to look at when it pertains to futures, you have to look at teams and how they're built from a salary component because Houston has tradable contracts. They just cashed in 2 of them for this deal with Jalen Green and with Dylan Brooks to be able to reach that salary number that Kevin Durant has. So the same thing could be said for Fred VanVleet, and they still have all their young pieces. They didn't move any one of them. So there's room for Houston to make another move. And if they're going to be aggressive and ambitious like this, there's reason to think that it's not going to stop here at Kevin Durant.
So what do you think that starting lineup for Houston looks like? Is Fred VanVleet on the team? Is it Reed Shepherd who is starting in place of Fred VanVleet? Who's starting in place of Jalen Green? Is it Jabari Smith? Is it somebody else? They've got, like you said, so much young talent. Name me the starting five for Houston, Brandon.
So I was hoping you're going to Bryan for that one. So okay,
Bryan,
let's
name me
go.
the starting five for Houston. Bryan.
Who's
I
the two?
Yeah, I think maybe the two is not currently on the roster.
Yeah, I think so.
And as much as we like Reed Shepard's potential, I don't know if I thrust him into that role yet. I would look at Fred VanVleet, maybe Amen Thompson just slides to the two for now, and then you have Jabari Smith, Kevin Durant, and Alperen Şengün. But based on this question, Chad, like I don't think the roster is done yet. I think Houston goes out and does something else and adds somebody who's different to fill that Jalen Green spot in terms of like somebody who's more of a defender, a catch and shoot guy, not Kentavious Caldwell Pope, but conceptually somebody like that. Hell, if I were them, I would be calling Boston and being like, hey, what do you want for Derek White? Could we actually do like a Derek White sort of deal? Because that would make a lot of sense. Conceptually,
But
that's the kind of two guard that I would want. Somebody who can shoot threes, somebody who could defend, and somebody who doesn't need the ball a ton to be effective.
So would you even bet Houston at two in the Eastern Conference, or do you think Golden State is a better bet given how they played against them and what this team could have done if Steph hadn't been injured?
yeah, I think it's a tough spot with the Rockets because I think that I think two things can be true. I think they are right to be the second favorite in the West, but I don't think that necessarily makes them bettable at that spot either. Like they were the two seed already this year, but if you took Houston and put them into the East, considering the East picture we just talked about, they're the big favorite. Like everybody wants a piece of Houston then. But that would be true if you put the Lakers in the East as well, and you got Luka and LeBron. That maybe would be true if you put the Warriors in the East. You could make that case for a bunch of East teams. It's not the East though, and in particular, you're gonna have to beat the Thunder. Probably. We do know that since 2019 forward, the defending NBA champions have not made the following conference finals. So maybe we should be betting Houston because if it's not the Thunder, maybe it's open. But for right now, the Thunder, to me, are the team that we might have actually just seen the worst version of this team to come over the next few years. This is such a young Thunder squad. Caruso and Hartenstein are the veterans on this team, and they're like around 30. Like they're still fine and not necessarily going anywhere. J-Dub, still young, getting better. Chat's still young, not a great finals, should be getting better. We saw both of those guys get better in series and throughout the playoffs. Shea is still just kind of in the entering his prime stage. Probably will still get a little better. He still can clean up the handle a little bit, clean up the passing. To me, I can't invest in Houston futures right now because I do think the floor will keep them there in the regular season, except that Durant will miss some time, so they'll move a little bit. But to me, it might almost be that they're kind of buying down the price in Oklahoma City a little bit. The gap from OKC to Houston in the regular season may not be so huge, but in a playoff series, it still was a pretty wide gap. And to me, there was a lot of comparison about these Thunder that just won the title to the 2015 Warriors. We saw what the Warriors became after that. 73-9 after that. And they did not win the title. The injuries happened, LeBron happened. I understand, but this might have been the bad version of the Thunder compared to what's still to come. So I think that the Thunder might just be the team to beat in the West still, even though the Rockets are the team that's going to catch all the attention with Durant on the roster now.
All right, so the teams chasing who want to be like the Thunder, they want to be like the Pacers, they want to develop through the draft. They want to get young players on good deals. Obviously, the Mavericks, one of those teams, they blew everything up with Luka. They get lucky. They've now got the opportunity to draft Cooper Flagg. He will be the number one overall pick. If you had a scouting report for Cooper Flagg Bryan or Brandon, whoever would like to go first. I don't want to, I want to share the ball between you two. Um, do you have a comp? Do you have a assessment based on past number one picks? Brandon, we'll start with you.
I think that Cooper Flagg is the clear number one pick, and also simultaneously maybe not quite the generational guy that he's being hyped as this incredible next American MVP, surefire superstar. I would love a world where Cooper Flagg could be my second guy on the team. And that might sound slanderous. He's awesome. He does so many things well. The floor is incredibly high. He's an awesome defender. He can score so many ways. He can use both hands to finish. I don't know if I'm quite there yet on the shot. I think he needs to work on that a little bit. I don't know if that will ever be a knockdown skill for him. I don't know that I quite think he is like certainly not an A plus NBA athlete. I think he's more of like a B minus NBA athlete. I don't think it will hold him back, but I don't know if I see superstar MVP athleticism, which in the NBA, size and athleticism are going to rule the day, and you can't develop those things. You either are or you are not. To me, I look at him and I see a guy that I like to comp here is Andrei Kirilenko from the Jazz a couple decades ago, who sounds like a mean comp. I thought Andrei Kirilenko was awesome. Like I had him top 3 in MVP ballot one year as just a jackknife, do everything. I can initiate the offense. To me, that's Cooper's biggest talent for his size, is to be able to have the ball and create for others with his size, with the scoring threat, with his defense. It's the all-around game. It's maybe Franz Wagner, maybe Franz plus. It's maybe Gordon Hayward plus. And I know I'm doing all the white comps. Here's my other comp. What if you took LeBron James and all the stuff that he's good at, and all the rounded game and all the ways of seeing the game, and then you stuck him in a lanky white teenager from Maine? What if you did that? That's the comp. That's what Cooper Flagg is. And I mean all the good parts of that, but the limiting part also. And I think it's going to be a very good player, but not necessarily an MVP player to me.
All right, so Bryan, the Spurs are number two.
Mhm.
Super exciting team between Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Wemby when he's back. Um, they can draft. They're going to be able to draft Dylan Harper, who a lot of people peg to be an all-star. Flagg and Harper are probably the two prospects people are most excited about in this draft. Can they turn themselves into an OKC team in the next 12 to 24 months?
Well, if Victor Wembanyama's healthy, I think anything is possible, kind of for that team. And speaking of a team like Houston who has all their young guys, the Spurs have their young guys. Like they just drafted the rookie of the year. After drafting the rookie of the year, they have Stephon Castle, who we project is going to be really good, who people want to compare to a Drew Holiday type, for example. And if he's that, that's an enormous steal. That's an enormous win. That's someone who you know could be a number 3 on a championship team. We clearly all expect, if healthy, which is the key, Victor Wembanyama to be that number 1. So it's about filling out the rest of the roster and going shopping with maybe a Keldon Johnson or a Devin Vassell and trying to see what you can get for some of those guys if you want to like trade up. Oh, and by the way, they have De'Aaron Fox, who presumably would be your number 2 because they landed him last year. Dylan Harper's interesting. I wonder how he'd fit. It does feel like it's trending that way. I have my questions about the entire Rutgers experience last year, just because not just not making the NCAA tournament with, 2 of the top guys, but also like I just feel like if you're that good, you should probably win a little bit more. Now, stats don't always translate. Like we have a lot of examples of guys who aren't that productive in college and end up being more productive in the pros, like a Stephon Castle, like a Russell Westbrook, like a Zach LaVine. But there are examples the other way where guys put up big numbers in college, like a Ben Simmons, like a Markelle Fultz, and it doesn't really mean anything. And those are 2 of the guys that people are probably, scared of as it pertains to these Rutgers guys. Ace Bailey being the other one, and I think he scares more people for obvious reasons. I think Harper feels like a safe number 2 pick. I don't think I'm as high on him as some of the others. Like I really like VJ Edgecombe, for example. He's somebody who's going to be picked maybe right after Harper. He's favored to go 3. He might go 4th. I think he's definitely a top 5 pick. He's a guy that I'm really excited about. I like Trey Johnson a lot. Like there are other guys in this draft that excite me more long term. than Harper, but I still think Harper is going to be really good. But it feels like a safe number two overall pick. And for the Spurs, I don't think they need to sort of reinvent the wheel here. I just think they need to hit on somebody to continue to add to what they have.
So you don't think trading out of that spot if they're not convinced on Dylan Harper and trying to get someone who is a veteran that has a contract that plays to what fits within their construct is now and getting future picks because they will be giving up a number two overall pick is a better play.
Oh, I would absolutely entertain moving number two if I'm the Spurs. If I'm the Spurs and I want to get ambitious and really look at the Western Conference, like, okay, we have Victor Wembanyama. We can go to war with him and De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle and everything else we have. Like, yeah, I would entertain moving off of number two. Frankly, I thought that if Giannis was on the table, that's something that they can dangle in front of
Right.
Milwaukee and be like, hey, Giannis, Wemby, De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle if he survives that trade. Like the Spurs still have draft picks to play with. So yeah, I would definitely entertain moving off number two if there's a package worthy. Especially because like there are things that they can do now that Victor Wembanyama is still on his rookie contract and is not going to hit an extension until that kicks in a couple of years from now. So they have time to take in some salary, some big salary before Wemby ends up getting his inevitable max extension.
Well, look, you mentioned the Magic player who's sort of the fulcrum on which all this is going to turn, and that's Ace Bailey, who has been weird and enigmatic and making demands of teams when he has been the guy of those three players at the top of the board who people had the most questions about, has not visited anybody yet. Most people expected him to be the consensus number three. Now people thinking that it may be VJ Edgecombe, and that Con Knipple is the guy who could go four. Trey Johnson, you mentioned him, could go five. And a lot of people now starting to mock Ace Bailey going sixth to Washington. And because is it this guy's game? Is it this guy's attitude? Is it the way he's managing the process? I know his father is intimately involved. You know, dads always fuck things up. So, like, Brandon, if you're making a bet on who the number three pick is going to be, do we look at all this as a smokescreen, or are we off Ace Bailey going to the Sixers?
I don't think it's a smokescreen. I think Ace Bailey thinks it's all very real. I think Ace Bailey seems to want to fall out of the top five and get to a spot where he can get a few more shots up. This is a guy that just wants to shoot some jumpers, right? He just wants to just go be a hooper. This is a hooper at heart, and he wants to hoop with the Wizards, who need a hooper. He wants to hoop with the Nets, who we just talked about as a blank slate. That sounds more appealing to me. If I just want, can I be Cam Thomas? Great. I'll get 20 points a game. Like, he might become a pretty interesting rookie of the year sort of pick if he falls to one of those teams. Rookie of the year odds are up right now, by the way, at one book already. Cooper Flagg opened at minus 400 to be the rookie of the year. That is, yeah, Bryan's face does it all. That's an absurd number of overconfidence in Cooper Flagg. I'll give you a Rutgers hot take here. I watch a lot of Rutgers ball this year. Obviously, you need to because both Harper and Bailey. And I was like, man, I'm out on Bailey. Bailey's not good. This is not my style of guy. Here's my Rutgers hot take. I think Dylan Harper, if you could give me odds right now on to win an MVP someday, I will fade Cooper Flagg's odds and I would bet Dylan Harper's odds. I think Dylan Harper has a higher ceiling of MVP level of a James Harden type player of the way we choose MVPs these days of what he would do. What's weird is that after all my watching of Rutgers and all my hating of Ace Bailey and the style of player he is like a Wiggins type player, an MPJ, a Harrison Barnes, who are these guys? They're all like top three recruits that sucked for an entire NBA career. And then eventually were like, well, you kind of became a pretty solid fourth role player on a winning team after we paid you $300 million to develop into that. And you're like, well, I guess I'm not the number one player. Maybe I should rebound and defend a little bit. And like you eventually became that. But was it on your initial team that drafted you? Was it in our initial investment of $100 million? Not really. All that said, those are good players. Those are players on champions. Wiggins won a championship. MPJ won a championship. Different sort of player. Aaron Gordon was a number one in Orlando, then went to Denver and became a different version and became a champion. And this guy that we love, I think to me, I really like VJ Edgecombe. I really like Con Knipple. Shooting guards are only so valuable. Ace Bailey's upside of what he could be if that jumper is wet as it looks. If I think there's some defensive upside and potential there. We saw him make some nice blocks and steal some playmaking. I personally, after all that, still have Bailey top 4 on my draft board, even though I don't even like the idea of what he is. I think he's a perfect fit in Philadelphia. They need a shooter with size. VJ and Khan are shooting guards. This is a Cooper Flagg size player in Ace Bailey, and I'll come back all around. I will be looking to invest in the Sixers at 3, still drafting Ace Bailey. I'm not going to do it yet because this is effectively number 1 pick. We know 1 and 2, and we've seen the odds swing wildly in the 24 hours before the draft. Daryl Morey, don't care what you think about it. Daryl Morey doesn't care if you canceled your workouts. Daryl Morey is going to do whatever he feels like it, and if he feels like you're the guy his team wants to have, he's going to draft you and let you figure it out later. So I think Daryl Morey might, after all that, still think Ace is the guy. And if we can get he's a 400, plus 400 odds now. If I can get past 600, a 10-1 on, okay, we've all decided it's VJ. Let me swerve. The way I bet the draft is swerving. I'll bet on uncertainty. I still think Ace is in play at 3.
All right. Well, you also just gave me a hot take here about what's going to happen with Ace Bailey and where he best belongs, and also who has the higher upsides as MVP candidates in the future. Bryan, I know you have a hot take, and I'm actually incredibly interested in it because the player you're talking about not only represents the college where my younger son is about to go, so we paid a lot of attention to this kid, but also he is mocked to be going to the team that I love the most, the Chicago Bulls. Give me your hot take.
Okay. Are we talking about Derek Queen specifically? Is that who we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Just to make sure. Yeah, Derek Queen, who right now is in New York City, obviously getting ready for the draft. I'm very intrigued by his game. I think he's going to be either one of the best players in this draft or somebody who's out of the league in 5, 6 years. So the problem is with centers who can score, which he can. He has one of the better offensive games for a big man in this draft. Teams can't always figure out what to do with these guys. I remember vividly, this was 10 years ago, but Jahlil Okafor happened, right? This was somebody who came into the league. He was a bucket down low. He can score on anybody. And then 3 years later, after being a rookie of the year contender, was getting traded with Nick Stauskas for a second round pick and Trevor Booker to the Nets, where he just sat and did nothing for the duration of a few months before just flatlining the rest of his career. And we've barely seen him since. I think he made a cameo with the Fort Wayne team in G League this year. And he's been in the G League. He played, I think, for the Nigerian national team. Not a lot's really happened there. I think with Derek Queen, though, I, I don't know if he's Alperen Şengün 2.0. I don't know if he's a better version of that. But he can be something. He needs to go to the right team. This is something we don't talk about enough with draft picks. These guys have to go to the right environments often. I worry about anyone who's going to Washington, for example. No disrespect to anyone who roots for the Wizards. And I do think they have some players. I like Bilal Coulibaly. I like Alex Sarr. But the right guy has to go there. And I think with Derek Queen, if he goes to the Chicago Bulls, for example, I would like to see them move Nikola Vucevic if that's going to be the case. Because it's all right, what are we doing? If you have both of them there and Derek Queen's backing up Nikola Vucevic, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, do I trust the Chicago Bulls in terms of development? No offense. I mean, they haven't had a great track record as of late. They look like they're about to pay Josh Giddey a lot of money too, so we'll see what that happens there. But with Derek Queen, I think he needs to be in an environment where his offensive game is embraced. Don't try to make him just a pick and roll guy. He's somebody who can do things with the ball. I think there's some playmaking potential in there even at the next level. But he's somebody who can create. And for a big man. And I do wonder, is he going to be pigeonholed as somebody who plays 18 minutes a game and is like a fantasy stud, gets like 12 and 6 and then go sit down? Or is he somebody that is going to be nurtured and developed, probably like an Alperen Şengün, and see his offensive game like actually get to the next level? So I don't know if Chicago's the right environment unless you're telling me, hey, Nikola Vucevic can go somewhere else, or can he go to a different type? Brandon nods his head vigorously. Or can he go to another team? Like, I know Charlotte is a weird landing spot. I do think Charlotte might have the right coach finally, but they still have to get the right mix of players. Like, I have questions about LaMelo Ball, I have questions about Brandon Miller, and I bring them up because Charlotte could sneakily be a trade back candidate. So, do they go back in the top 10 and maybe get a Derek Queen if they're because the Mark Williams thing happened? And it's like, are they going to try to move off Mark Williams again because he was almost a Laker that one time that we seemingly all forgot? So I think Derek Queen could either be really good or just somebody who's just shoved out the league because teams can't figure out what to do with an offensive minded center anymore unless they could shoot threes at a great rate or can just get like 7, 8 assists per game or something along those lines. They like almost have to be special. And I think there's room for somebody who can create their own offense on the interior, score in the post, so to speak, but could also like be a little bit of a hub, even if it's just for stretches of a game.
All right, Brian, you mentioned Charlotte potentially trading back, which would be sort of a bold prediction for draft night. Brandon, I'm going to give you the last word. Give me your bold predictions for NBA draft night.
I'm going to give you a bold bet that you can make right now for NBA draft night. We led at the top with the Kevin Durant trade. In that trade, the Phoenix Suns traded away Kevin Durant. They got back some guys I don't really like very much, but they also got back a draft pick. They got the number 10 pick. And the Suns have not had a number 10 pick. Have the Suns been paying attention to the guys being drafted in the top 10? Have the scouts even been like ready for who might be that guy in the top 10? You know who's guy that the Suns do know a lot about? Matt Ishbia, the owner that likes to be involved. Played a little basketball in college with Jason Richardson. He won a championship with Jason Richardson. Jason Richardson is the father of Jace Richardson. Perhaps we know that about him. Jace Richardson to be the number 10 pick. I bet it in the Action app last night, 40-1 odds. Do I think he should be the number 10 pick? Probably not, but I think it's in a range. I have Jace Lottery on my board. That's in a range well enough. Maybe the scouts aren't totally ready yet, or maybe Matt Ishbia is ready. And he's like, you know what? We're starting over, but we're starting over with my guy from MSU, the Michigan State Heritage pick. Maybe he took number 10 with full intention to put the stamp on and bring in Jace. That's my bold prediction. 40-1 or best number you can find.
I love that. Brian, I lied. I'll give you the last word.
Come on.
Do you have as bold a prediction as Brandon does?
Unfortunately, not 40-1, but I do think, like I'm intrigued at a potential shakeup in the top five where I looked at Jeremiah Fears at plus 300 and Common Malawach at plus 350 to go into the top five. Because if Ace Bailey is going to legitimately fall, because there are still some books who think he's going to go in the top five, and I know that Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo keep talking about Utah potentially liking Ace Bailey. I think there's a reason for that. But if Ace Bailey does fall out of the top five, you're going to need guys to rise on the board. Jeremiah Fears is somebody who reportedly has been killing his draft workouts, who is somebody who is a very athletic guard. I have questions about the jump shot, but those type of dudes tend to rise up in the draft. Malawach also is 7'2" and looks like he's going to be able to knock down threes at some point consistently, along with being a rim protector. That's modern day NBA basketball from the center position. We just saw Chet Holmgren in the
Yeah.
NBA Finals being a version of that. Those are the two guys that I would look at in terms of potentially crashing the party in the top five. Malawach from Duke was one guy that I especially like. He scared the hell out of me as somebody who's Puerto Rican in the World Cup and in the Olympics because he was on South Sudan. And I was like, man, I hope they don't play him a lot. They did not. And he's going to be the face of that program for a long, long time. But those two guys, I think either one of them have the potential to rise into the top five if something just sort of freaky happens early on in the draft.
All right, Brandon Anderson, Brian Fonseca. Listen to Buckets, everyone, because this stuff was great. You'll get more of it on Buckets. The favorites will be back with our next episode Thursday on the Action Network YouTube page. Download us Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe. Leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Until next time, love you.